am Adam Evans, Director and Co-founder at Levick Stanley. Levick Stanley is a specialist recruiter for change, transformation, tech and data roles, which I set up in 2017 with my business partner, Jonathan Cox. In this series, I'm talking to senior leaders from within the change and transformation space to understand more about their careers and achievements, things they've learned the hard way, and what they think the future looks like for our sector. Today, I am delighted to be joined by Shula Kerr, Head of Projects at PPL. Shula brings more than 25 years of experience across the music and telecoms industries, working within business, project delivery, and people-led change. Shula, I'm delighted to be talking with you today. I've known you for around 8 years and always enjoyed finding good people for both you and PPL. It was really great last year to bring my niece in for the day. She was on work experience, and for you to share with her your findings and quite honestly engage with her the way you did. She loved it and she still talks about it, and I'm really thankful for that. Lovely. Which leads me quite neatly to question one. Looking back over your time at PPL, which project or projects do you consider the turning point in your career, and what lessons do you think you took from it?
Okay, so I started as a contract PM actually, and my first projects were to deliver the then new PPL website and also to create like a digital store for licensees to enable them to buy music video assets. But a year or so after that, we kicked off this kind of huge transformation program that we called Money Out. It was all around our kind of back office distribution systems. And it was we were replacing the heart of our kind of systems and processes really. And we delivered a repertoire database, we implemented Salesforce as our CRM system, and we implemented Alliant to manage our rights and distributions, amongst other things. So I was the program manager for this role, and I'll be honest, it was a baptism of fire for me because I had not managed anything like this, you know, in terms of scale before. And it started actually at the RFP stage. So we drafted an RFP. And we basically saw variety of kind of consultancies because we needed help with this. We needed a partner to help us, and we brought in Deloitte, and we had them for the next few years, and they were great. Actually, worked really well with them. So I guess I do remember though at the very start going into my boss, who was the CFO, and saying to him, like, why am I running this? Like, this is not something I've done before. It's huge. I'm not sure I can do it, and all of this. And he was like, don't be ridiculous, get back out there, all fine. So I guess key things I learned were that I learned how to fake it till I made it, and just have self-belief, because that was a major thing. I think dealing with consultants who've, you know, done this for many organizations, learning how to maximize the value from consulting partners as well was a big deal, I think. And I think one of the biggest things, though, was just the huge, and this kind of talks to the change point, the huge value of the right business SMEs who know how we work, but are also open to change. And I think that's where I really got the kind of understanding of how important change management is, and you can't just kind of implement things without that. So I think that those are the things I would say on that one.
Yeah. So that Money Out program, did you put your hand up for that, or did the boss just say, you're doing this, like it or lump it?
It was funny, really. I sort of almost, it's like a lot of things here. I ended up just kind of diving in, and then next minute I'm kind of, you know, sort of program manager. So, I mean, it was certainly one of those things where I was probably the best place at the time to do it. And I just quite like a challenge. And it's quite nice when it's a little bit daunting, actually, because they're the times that you learn the most, and you really can come alive with it. So I actually quite like it when it's like that. It's kind of a bit dull when you know what you're doing and it's all like, oh, I just need to do this. It's good to be challenged, I think.
Definitely. I mean, I speak to a lot of people, and I think when it moves towards BAU, that's when people start to get bored, don't they?
Yeah.
It's like, you know, doing the same thing daily, the process, whatever it might be. Whereas actually to have something new on the horizon, or a new program, or a new challenge, or a new project, or whatever it might be, that's when it becomes exciting again. Because you get those butterflies, and you have to go out and learn quite quickly and get on with it, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
That's good. So was there a defining moment, you think, where you thought, you know what, I'm really enjoying change transformation and I'm going to stick with that? Because obviously before that, in telecoms, you did other things, didn't you?
I did. I mean, look, I knew that I wanted to work in the project space, and it's funny because even here at PPL, there've been times early on where it's been a case of like, how do you feel about working in this operational team or running this kind of operational part of the business? And I've never really wanted to do that because I've always wanted to be I've always wanted to be driving change really, and I kind of see myself as somebody who delivers things. It's just how, I think once you get used to doing that, you just kind of, you need that dopamine hit, I think, of having things to actually deliver. So I think that's probably it. And I definitely think that program did help me sort of get, even more that way of thinking in terms of being really keen to just deliver stuff. So I would say that probably was one of the turning points, really, running that program. And we've done other ones since, and
Yeah.
and they've all been different.
I was going to
Yeah.
mention actually the Workday program, because that was
Yeah,
we were working on that together, weren't we?
we
And
were.
that was pretty huge. And obviously, you'd never done Workday before, and because
That's
of the
right.
global pandemic, you were then told it was all you, wasn't it? So I think the timing of that
Yeah,
was quite interesting as well, wasn't it? Because you were, I think from memory, you were going to supervise it, but then
that's
actually it was like,
right.
no, change your mind, you're doing all of it. So
I mean, look, it was a bit of that, but I was also really keen to do it because we'd had to
yeah,
put a stop on lots of other things, and we knew that we had to do this program. And as you say, it was putting financials and HCM into the business all at once, so it was a big deal. And actually, it was great to be. Sometimes when you're managing programs and you're managing people that are managing programs, it's great to actually do the doing. So I really enjoyed kind of taking a project and actually having to run it. And I think you sort of relearn things again, and you sort of, and I think it's good for people who are managing kind of programs to get their hands dirty and manage actual components within that from time to time, just because otherwise you become a bit detached from things. I think the
yeah,
big challenge with that one was it was all remote. So we started it at the start of COVID, and we basically finished it just before everybody went back to work.
yeah,
So that was a challenge because, yeah, it was all remote, all the workshops were remote. Some people we never met face to face, but we had a brilliant partner delivering that with us, and Workday were great as well. So yeah, I actually loved it, to be honest. It was a great
yeah.
experience.
I remember you
So
saying, were you set up to work remotely then? Were you ready to go, or did that take some time as well as everything else?
we were, but it was a bit of a baptism of fire with Teams
Yeah,
because everybody was just kind of learning how Teams and that worked. So I think, yeah, we were all having to kind of adapt a little bit to do that. And then there were just some days it was really hard when you've got people in workshops for hours and hours on end. And unfortunately, you just had to do that in some of the
yeah,
times just to get
yeah,
through it. So, but it was fine. It worked, and we got it done.
yeah.
So yeah.
How did you keep them motivated and on task? Because obviously, as you say, you never met them, some of them. It was hard. There was day-long workshop, people just staring at, Teams all day or whatever. That must have been a challenge, right? Keeping people on track and motivated because you're not together. There's not that moment you can kind of break out and have a bit of a laugh. You are
That's right.
literally in front of your screen, locked in your bedroom all day.
Yeah. What I tried to do was just I've tried to kind of, obviously we had all the big meetings, but I tried to have kind of good sort of working relationships with people on an individual basis as well. So I tried to kind of, before we had some of the big meetings, make sure that I'd spoken to people individually, make sure they were ready, make sure they were happy, anything they were worried about, and just tried to sort of, it was a bit of I think it needed a bit more care with people. And just to make sure they were okay, and also that they were taking breaks and things, and kind of almost sometimes saying, look, I know we scheduled this for this day, but we've had 3 or 4 days of it. Everyone's exhausted. Let's move this to next week. So being a bit
Yeah,
more flexible about the program in terms of when we were doing what, and still staying within the timelines, but just being sensible about it, and just trying to kind of, yeah, talk to people and kind of work with people on a personal level as well, and it's difficult because you're not sat next to them, and you can't it's difficult when you can't get people's body language and things as easily. However, I think there were some people that I hadn't even met that had come into our PPL team that had been put onto the program, and so it was important that I spent time with them, even if it was on Teams. So I think that was the important thing, fostering personal
yeah.
relationships with people, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. I think that makes complete sense. Which actually, funnily enough, my next question is around sort of the stakeholders and
Yeah.
how obviously as you've moved through PPL and your role's grown and the programs you've worked on have grown as well, and the differences there. And how have you sort of managed to maintain your kind of, I suppose, core values, PPL's core values, whilst maintaining those really good relationships with your senior stakeholders?
So I suppose I guess PPL's values are quite straightforward and easy to remember. They're very sort of sensible. In fact,
Yeah.
funnily enough, and this is not kind of, I've just seen it here in front of
On
me.
cue.
When you can
Yeah.
see this, we have these in the office that kind of talk about our values. I think at one point we had some quite we had some sort of ones that related to the industry, and we tried to be quite clever with them. They were quite poetic, whereas I think we've gone back to something a bit more straightforward, which is a bit easier for people, and that's helpful. But I think it's quite easy to incorporate these things into my working life because they're all very sensible sort of values. One key thing for me, I think, is collaboration. And we do that so much at PPL. We're a very, sometimes to a fault, we're a very collaborative organisation. And I really value, that my colleagues' skills, knowledge, and experience, and their perspectives at all levels. I don't think you can learn something from everyone, and I think it's important to remember that. And I definitely think that what's helped me through this last few years at PPL, or the whole time I've been here, which is nearly 20 years, which seems crazy. It's those relationships. It is those kind of stakeholder relationships. When you've been somewhere for so many years, you get to know people really well, and you can tailor your approach to the teams and individuals. And I think, again, you need to do that at every level and not be kind of I just speak to kind of the exec. I don't, I think that's important if you want to get full engagement and buy-in when you're implementing change. So it's a lot of what I've done and the joy I've got out of work is based on those relationships actually. So that's been really nice, I think.
Absolutely. And I think you've earned the trust as well, haven't you? I think you mentioned to me before, for someone to say to you back on the sort of the money program, you do this, I've got your back, off you go. And you're a bit daunted, but actually to then do it and deliver it. And that was a big program. It's 4 years working with Deloitte, working with externals, a lot of work, a lot of pressure. So, you earn the right as well, don't you? You earn the trust. And over 20 years, I'm sure that internal network is quite strong too.
Definitely.
That's great. Looking ahead, I suppose, what emerging trends do you foresee in project and change management? And what do you think will be important ones of those or factors of those for organisations like PPL to try and embrace?
So I think for a few years now, I mentioned it earlier, actually, we've been increasing our use of social and collaborative technologies like Teams, Slack, Confluence, Jira. They've really kind of changed the game in terms of helping us to collaborate better and to kind of streamline the whole reporting piece and reduce silos and actually resistance to change as well. And it's helped us kind of create project communities and so on. So I think we'll use, more and more of that as that changes, I think. Well, like many organisations, I think PPL is moving more towards agile delivery methodologies. So it's not entirely new for us because we've adopted a blended approach over recent years, but we're seeing more and more opportunities and benefits to work in a more agile way. And we want to be able to do things more quickly and more iteratively. So I expect to be driving some changes in the organisation as to how we can do that and how we can deliver change more iteratively over the coming weeks and months. And then I think obviously there's things like AI, which I'm sure everybody mentions, and machine learning. So we're embracing AI where it makes sense. So for example, we're trialing Microsoft Copilot internally at the moment, and we're implementing some of the AI features into Salesforce to support our member services teams. But also, I think, as you know, and I'm sure other people would say to you as well, it's moving so quickly, isn't it? That there's new things and new opportunities and new knowledge about AI and its capabilities every couple of weeks, every month. So I think we're really keen to see how our technology partners refine and position their AI capabilities, and how we can leverage those to meet our goals. So we don't want to I think sometimes now it might be a case of holding back on some change we want to make because we want to see what opportunities we've got with that in due course. Having said all of that, our top priority is always keeping our members' data secure and using AI in the right way. So it is a balancing act, and everybody's learning, aren't they? And you'll find that yourselves. I'm sure you're having similar kind of thoughts.
Yeah. Well, we're just ourselves putting in a new CRM this week and last week. So that's quite interesting because obviously I recruit change all the time. I talk about change all the time, but when it comes to me changing, it's quite difficult. So my adoption has been, I wouldn't say I'm in last place, but certainly near the bottom of the league table for adopting and learning. But a lot of it is, it's smarter. It's not necessarily using AI, but it's good ways of, accessing information quicker and doing things more efficiently. So when it's all set up properly and all singing and dancing, it should be far more effective. So it's quite amusing for me to be in this seat thinking I've got to slowly adopt this, and good communications. And you talk about collaboration. This morning, one of the guys has found a little shortcut, and I was like, brilliant. Document it, screenshot it, share it, and then we've all got it in front of us. It's obviously a smaller team, but it's good that everyone then gets best practice and we can all use it together. So that's been quite an interesting one on that side, definitely as well for us.
it's those quick and you know, those little, sometimes those little hacks, those little quick wins can be the thing that kind of turns somebody like onto something that they've been completely not engaging with, isn't it? You know, it's sometimes it's just those little things that can really help. But I'm with you. I mean, with Confluence, when we started using Confluence, I was a bit similar in a sense, and I was not, for, you know, an early adopter in any way. But now I'm kind of one of the biggest fans, just in terms of how it's cut down my team's, you know, in terms of how we use it for reporting. It saves a lot of time every month in terms of pulling kind of things together for kind of exec meetings and so on. I would just say throw yourself into it and just kind of put the time aside to just kind of, you know, hammer it, and I'm sure you'll I'm sure you'll kind of benefit.
And then finally, if you could pinpoint one capability that aspiring change makers need to develop, what would it be? And how did you cultivate that in yourself, do you think?
I think that the answer I have is a very, very simple thing, and it's just listening. Because I just think that as someone who loves to talk, you know, I do like talking. I sometimes have to really catch myself and just be like, no, just listen. I think it's so important to listen to people who are driving change and those impacted by it as well, and actively take on board what you've heard and adapt your approach accordingly and be seen to be doing that. I think that's really important. And it's not, you know, especially in times of change where people are worried about the future and they're worried about how AI is going to kind of impact them and whether it's going to impact their roles and so on. So I think there's that. And then I think there's also being open to learning and adapting to new ways of working and new technologies as things evolve, like we talked about earlier, and trying to embrace new ways of working. I think that's the key thing. But I definitely think listening and just kind of keeping those personal relationships, keeping the stakeholder management strong is always the thing that kind of helps, I think, in a role like mine, I would say.
Yeah, definitely. That's really helpful. Well, thank you so much. As I say, really love to talk to you. As you say, we love talking. We can both talk all day, but it's been really good. It's good to hear your views on it, and I really appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, Adam. Thank you very much for speaking to me.